Alright, what's good y'all? Soul here, and welcome back to my story mode. So, for a good couple of years now, we have had debates upon debates about the validity of rivals in Pokemon games for ages now. It's been there ever since we got Silver as a rival in Pokemon Gold and Silver. This debate will never slow down as long as rivals are a guaranteed thing in the Pokemon franchise. There is a very slight chance that I may have talked about this briefly at some point in the past, and if I have, I'm sorry. When it comes to the kind of content that I need to make for this channel, there's only so much I can do during the down seasons. However, I don't believe that we've gone this in depth about this topic, so I think that we're in the clear. I don't believe there's been a time where I've ever truly ranked my favorite rivals in the Pokemon series. And I think I'm gonna do that in some kind of ranking video in the very near future, so when it's out, go ahead and check it out for me. However, you've seen the title and you've seen the thumbnail. We're not necessarily here to talk about my favorite rival in the franchise, we're here to talk about my ideal rival in the franchise. I'd like to talk about not only some of my favorite aspects that I've seen of rivals throughout the games, but I would also like to talk about concepts that we haven't really seen as much that I would love to see implemented in rivals in the future. Having a true rival in these games is so critically important that I don't see us having a future without them. Which is why I would like to take a minute of the downtime of Pokemon to talk about some ideal aspects that I would love to see in a rival. So you already know the drill by now. Why don't you go ahead, get some kind of comfy with a coat and a blanket, grab your footlong from Subway, dip it in the nearest bucket of fish oil that you can find, and let's talk about some of the prime aspects that I would love to see in a rival. So first and foremost, obviously the most important thing you need in a character is character. There's nothing worse than an NPC that acts and feels like an actual NPC. They need to feel like an actual person. They need to have likes, they need to have dislikes, they need to have hopes and dreams, they need to have some kind of fear, something that makes them unique. Now, in the case of Pokemon, this rarely comes up as a problem. If there's one thing that you can count on Pokemon for, it's unique designs and personality in a lot of these characters. Of course, there are plenty of examples that are much stronger than others. However, for the most part, they usually do get some kind of character down. And when it comes to rivals, they don't exactly 100% nail it on the head with every single character. However, you could definitely see the effort. We see the cocky brat that Blue is, the one that tries to make an example out of you every single time you show up to a new gym or to battle him somewhere. The weenie, the crybaby, the one that simply doesn't feel like he can do it in Wally. And of course, the one with only one thing on her mind, which is Pokemon battling, her absolute favorite thing in the world, in Nemona. For the most part, they always have at least one thing in common by the end of the game, and that is beating your ass. However, every single one of these rivals can differentiate from one another. They are all completely unique. Well, for the most part anyway. I think Hop and How are different characters, for the most part. Anyway, you get the idea. I would like to see this continue, and even if they don't hit it completely out of the park every single time, I'd like to see the effort that they put in already. So just keep that up and we'll be fine. After that, something that I feel we don't talk about enough is the character's history and what's possible to learn from their history. One thing that would always upset me about Silver is the fact that his history was way too missable. The fact that he's Giovanni's kid is something that is basically almost never touched upon, ever. Apparently they touched upon this fact in the manga, but A, I haven't read the manga in years, B, why do we need to get offhand information about something so important like that? We could have easily had an important developmental arc in Pokemon Gold, Silver, Heart Gold, or Soul Silver, where Silver is trying to define himself as more than just that guy's kid, as his own person. That just because they're blood does not mean that they need to be family, especially when Giovanni is clearly a sick man. Why? Why did we not utilize this history? Why give us information about something like that at all and do absolutely nothing with it? I always felt like 2nd Gen had some of the weakest storytelling in the entirety of the series. I feel like delving into the history between Silver and Giovanni could have easily put it up there with some of the greatest, but they didn't do that at all. And that's very important to me. As somebody that's supposed to be my rival, I feel like I should at least get to know them to some capacity to know why they are the way that they are. And of course, it would definitely help in the case for a lot of other rivals. We don't know why Blue is such a cocky, competitive little brat, but he is, and he's always trying to show you up, but we never knew why this came to be. Was he jealous of us, the main character growing up? Was he always ignored by his grandfather, potentially his parents? We don't really know that much about Blue. Now, my memory on 3rd Gen is a little hazy, but was there something that traumatized Wally? Is there a reason why he's so timid and barely wants to participate in battling the way he does? Is there a reason why Nemona cares about nothing else other than battling people? One of the very few things that we know about her past is that she kind of comes from a pretty damn successful family. However, rich does not always equal happy, especially when your family is focused more on a money aspect as opposed to their daughter. That's not exactly what I'm saying happened or anything like that. I really don't know, but it is very possible is all I'm saying. Now, I will give Hop credit where credit is due. He has a bit of a history and his personality kind of reflects that. With his older brother being the strongest champion known to man, he's always had to live in something of a shadow. And that makes sense, that's a very common thing for siblings like that. He played that happy-go-lucky character and tried his best to live up to his family's legacy. However, he was getting stomped out every way from Sunday, and that started to take a bit of a toll on him. So because of that little bit of history that we actually had placed in front of us, we were actually able to see some real Did I just break down why Hao's actually not that bad of a character? Oh man. All right, I gotta replay 8th Gen again maybe. Anyway, moving on. Giving us a character's history and actually utilizing that history and applying it to their story and their journey and their development really makes a little bit of a difference. You guys have apparently managed to do this a couple of times beforehand, so let's lock it down, get a character with some real history, and utilize that history to explain why they are the way that they are and how they're gonna develop throughout the story. Do that, and I promise you, you will have some of the strongest potential for the greatest rival we've ever had. But speaking of a developing story, that's another very important thing that we should talk about: the rival's involvement in the plot. One of the things that I've noticed that's very hit or miss is how involved a lot of your rivals are with the story of the game. They've done a better job in more recent titles, but there were a lot of times where rivals would just kind of pop up out of nowhere solely to inconvenience you. Now, of course, I can't get too mad because in reality, your rival has the exact same goal as you. So they're traveling naturally to the exact same places that you are. So yeah, it's not like it doesn't make sense for them to be in those places, but there should be better reasons for them to be where they are sometimes. One thing I liked about 4th Gen so much is how involved your main crew was with the story. Hell, there was even times where Rowan was just kind of doing his own thing. You could catch him at the library. But I feel like one of the more underrated moments in the series is Barry getting absolutely bodied by Mars. It's one of those things that was very good for his character. Just because he had the means doesn't mean he had the strength to back it up. Up until that point, he was doing his best to put on a brave face, doing his best to try and keep up with you as his rival. But that moment right there proved just how dire the situation was and how he couldn't just sit there and act like everything was gonna be okay. He needed to back his strength up. He needed to get serious. So when you were finally at Spear Pillar and he showed up to get his get back, that was a very tough moment for him, and I love stuff like that, man. I want more like that. Now, of course, it's always fun when the characters are involved in the story, just like 8th Gen when Hop is with you at the very end when you're fighting off Eternatus, or when all 3 of your squad, Penny, Arven, and Nemona, are with you when you're going down to Area Zero to, you know, save the world casually. But I love moments that test a character's resolve and willpower, and we need more just like that, because we don't really see stuff like this enough. You have situations where people like Hao are like, yeah, they're there when the plot is going down, when stuff's happening, but they don't develop, they don't really contribute all that much, and they don't make that much of a difference in the overall plot. And that's kind of weak to me, you know? I don't really care for situations where you could take a character completely out of a scenario and absolutely nothing would change. That's not very strong writing to me. When a character is involved in a plot, that means that they are there for a reason and something has to change with their presence there. Maybe not all the time, but you know, they should have a reason to be where they are, you know? So all I'm saying is, don't hesitate to get these characters a little more entangled with the plot. That's all I'm saying. And lastly, of course, the most important and most obvious thing that these rivals always need to have more of is development. This is unfortunately something that is consistently lacking throughout the series, which is why when it does happen, it's actually really cool. For example, that moment with Barry that I just mentioned a moment ago. He fought, he lost, he understood why, he grew from it, and he got his get back. Great, awesome, more like that, please. The most recent example that I could probably think of is Arven and Penny. Obviously, I don't consider them rivals as much as I do Nemona, of course. However, they still do count and they're still heavily entangled within your character's story. But one of the reasons why people like Generation 9's writing is because these characters actually face some serious hardships and hangups that they had to get over throughout the course of the story, and they actually managed to do so in a very good and natural way. This is the kind of development that I'm talking about, and putting all of that focus into one character as opposed to 2 or 3 could really make a serious difference in how we feel about a character once we finish a game. And of course, obviously, I don't really mention Nemona all that much because she doesn't really go through much development. I appreciate her character and I appreciate that she's there for a good chunk of the main story, but she doesn't really have any hardships to go through throughout that plot. She's just kind of there. She just battles you and helps you out whenever it's convenient. That's not really development. Nothing's really happening or changing with her. And you know what? Maybe I'm just too invested in fiction a lot. Maybe I'm just a little greedy. Not every character needs to go through hardships. Not every character needs to be absolutely traumatized. However, I'm just saying it helps the story more than it hurts to have developing characters all around you. But maybe I'm just tripping. Anyhow, all I'm trying to say here is that they have the recipe. They have always had the recipe for strong characters and rivals in these games, and they could absolutely take that next step if they're brave enough to apply all of these things in the proper order to the next main rival. Nobody talks about the 6th Gen squad or even Marnie or anybody like that because these characters were just not that strong of contenders. They were barely present in the plot and they barely had any kind of development. Therefore, they're all completely forgettable. Hell, until just this moment, I completely forgot about Bede, who was also barely present in the main story like that. I mean, he kind of had his moment, that's fair, you know, but he didn't make that much of an impression, you know? I'm just saying, you guys have always had the right ideas, just in the wrong places and sometimes the wrong times, is all I'm getting at. One day, I just simply hope to see a rival with all of these concepts at least somewhat adapted so that we can get a true character out of these guys. Cause man, y'all can do it when you really put your heart into it, but hey, maybe that's just me. So that just about wraps it up for this one here. I just want more out of these rivals because I know that Pokemon, when they really let their writers get down to it, they can really write something phenomenal, truly extraordinary. And I would love to see that applied and implemented in a lot of their characters, not even just the rivals, but you know what, maybe one step at a time. Yeah, so we'll play things by ear. We'll see what happens by the time we get around to next generation, because we know for a fact Pokemon Legends ZA is not gonna have a rival. So, you know, that's something I'm okay with. But for now, I'm gonna go ahead, pass the mic over to you, and I'm asking you how you feel about the possibilities of an ideal rival. Do you agree with everything that I've said in this video? Do you think that some proper development and entanglement with the story could absolutely give us a really worthy rival? Or am I completely off base? All of these things that they've either already done, it just doesn't work, and there's gotta be a new way to make a good rival. Tell me everything that you guys are thinking in the comment section below, because you know for a fact that I am always gonna be down there with you guys. But with that, it does appear to be skedaddle o'clock. So I'm gonna go ahead and do just so. I would like to thank you guys ever so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed. Do me the greatest favor of dropping a like and a comment, and consider subscribing for more content just like this here. And with that, I'm Gongso. Thanks again, hope you enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Do me the greatest favor of taking good ass care, and I'll see you all next time.